And now we're going to move swiftly on to Gorka Penalva from Exolum, and we're going to be doing a dot-to-dot on the SAF value chain and taking perspective a bit wider than just production. So, wherever you want. So, what do you see as the wider SAF value chain to begin with? Let's sort of define it for everyone, because it's come up briefly across today, but what does it mean, and where does Exolum specifically sit within it?
Well, firstly, good afternoon to everybody. Oscar, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here. Also, you're bigger and three-dimensional than two-dimensional, I tell you. Intimidating. Well, the way we see SAF is a very broad market. Is a lot bigger market than we speak here. We talk a lot about production. We talk a lot about airlines, but when we actually deep down and look into the chain, we see a lot more players that they're not so much in the day-to-day, because obviously they don't play such a bigger role as what the producer or the consumer does, but they do take a role that needs to be taken into account. Obviously myself from Exolum, that name there, which a lot of people don't know who we are. We are a logistic company. We own 2,000 kilometers worth of pipeline in the UK. We connect most of the big airports and a lot of import terminals. So therefore, we do see ourselves in the value chain in the sense that we can help in the efficiency and to make SAF work within the countries we operate. Firstly, in Spain, where our main head office is and original businesses, and obviously here in the UK. We like to see ourselves as being able to take that molecule from production all the way to the airport, and even in some cases to the plane.
And your role within the value chain and everyone else you sort of work with, what's the value of sort of being very synergistic? I'm pretty sure that's a word, we're pretending it's a word, with all those players all the way up to the aircraft wing that you're working with. How important is being connected across the whole?
Well, it's what I was saying before. It's all about talking about efficiencies and being. We're talking about an expensive product. We're talking about something that's going to increase the price of flying. So the more we can, increase those synergies and those efficiencies, the longer life that we're going to have as an industry, and the more successful life we're going to have as an industry. So therefore, the way we can add to all of this is the way I see the logistics is being able to provide a hub within the UK, one or two hubs in the UK, when you can bring in the SAF, you can bring in the mineral jet, and then you can blend it and put it into the pipeline. And then once in the pipeline, then we act a banking system in which you can pick it up wherever place within the pipeline you want, or whichever airport you want. And if that works, it could add, it could have a lot more value in the sense that, for example, we talked about pricing. Ryan just spoke about pricing for the last 20 minutes, and if we have enough volume in one place, we can replicate a little bit, or in a way, what we see in Rotterdam with jet. You have jet prices of the SIF Northwest Europe quote of Platts. Well, we could have a SIF Humber for SAF. You never know. So Ryan, if you're still alive after the Henry VIII joke, we can talk about how to get this going and working.
The idea of SAF is that it's a drop-in fuel, so that it can be integrated into existing infrastructure. So why, should people care? Why is this so important when, in theory, you just sort of put it along with the other fuel, you can blend it and sort of transport it wherever you want? Why is sort of the logistics transportation something that needs to be considered in the SAF context?
Yeah, my thought exactly a year ago. why is it so important? Well, actually, you find that SAF and mineral jet doesn't blend as well as you would have thought. It's not as easy as just mixing it together, and there you go. You have your finished
You don't just need a
grade.
really big whisk.
Sorry?
It's not as big as just having a really big whisk.
It's not a big whisk. It's just a big blowtorch where you blow air, which is fascinating, and is not healthy to be inside of that tunnel, I'll tell you. But you need to be very careful when you blend mineral jet and when you blend SAF. It's not as straightforward as you think. It's not as complex as blending probably gasoline or other mineral fuels. But you do need to have additional, you need to have tanks specifically working for this type of thing and to be able to blend, because otherwise you get segregation, and you can have, you can have a truck that's segregated and you have jet in one side, you have SAF in one side, it gets to the airport and you might be in trouble. So yeah, it's important to make sure that the quality is correct and everything is blended well before you put it into the airport.
This is another thing that's not necessarily cheap. Building infrastructure to suit this new commodity isn't necessarily cheap.
It's not necessarily cheap, and I tell you, there's not many people running to give money to build it. So it's something, we're an infrastructure company. We're not big in risk. So the model that we normally work is a customer needs a tank, needs some infrastructure, we go and build it for them. But for SAF, it's going to be a little bit different. Our view on having an import terminal we think is so important that we're actually going to go out of that normal model, and actually we're going to invest ourselves and go at risk. Obviously, the risk compared to building a plant is minute, but it is, for us as a company, is a little bit different. And I think it's going to be able to help the industry as a whole.
What are the challenges that those risks around investing in this, like creating for you?
Well, for us, the challenge is firstly is we have to change the mindset. That's always going to be complicated in any company. But, it also allows us to to be more active and to be able to bring all these different players into the UK and into the import terminal. It also allows us to magnify our role as an independent logistic provider, so people will trust us more and take us more into account when they're building their projects.
That was going to be my next question about whether producers. This is totally off the cuff, we haven't planned any of this. Whether producers need to consider or are considering the infrastructure requirements when they're building projects, whether that's something you think, you'd like to have conversations about it. Would you want to be involved in those conversations? Are you happy coming in slightly later?
Well, we like to be involved at the beginning. We are an important part of the industry. It's very easy to get drawn down into the production or into the consumption side. But again, if we manage to produce an import a total of 1 million tons of SAF in 2030 to meet the mandate of 1.4 million tons, and we start thinking about putting trucks on the road to transport those molecules, then we're going to create a big issue for everybody. So by having the pipeline operator being involved, the blender, the import, importing logistics, it kind of eases up a lot of that great part of the project that some people don't tend to think of until it's a little bit too late.
Do you think policy, the current structure of policy, everyone says policy drives a lot of these conversations initially, is constructed in a way that sort of, engages you and creates this system-wide mentality rather than sort of dealing with it as production, offtake, in the slightly more siloed different sections? Is it filling the brief, or do you think there's room to sort of improve on that front?
Well, to be honest, we are in it's an industry that is not driven by economics per se. It's actually been driven by policy. It's driven by the mandate. None of us will be here without the mandate. So I think that policy has been relatively good. It's moving slowly, but it's moving. Now we have things, it is only being seen in silos because it's concentrated in production. Now it's concentrated on the demand with this, revenue certainty mechanism, which still has to be thought about because obviously, there's some talk that the polluter pays, but ultimately what happens is if the polluter pays, the polluter will increase his mineral price and pass it on to the consumer. So there are a lot of factors which still have to be taken into account. And as those factors get taken into account, I do think that policy also has to move towards integrating everything. I do believe that there should be, a general, a plan for the industry as a whole. We shouldn't get away from these silos because, again, we're looking at expensive product. We're looking at an industry which we say, I've heard this today saying, price is important, but it's not that important because people will still fly. I kind of disagree with that. I think people will fly less, and we should be backing the industry up to for growth and growing exponentially. I mean, as far as oil goes, is the only part of the barrel which is going to grow in the next 10 years. So we have to make sure that we back that up and we keep the consumers, as far away as possible from having to pay for all of this. It's difficult. They'll have to pay part of it, but it's up to us to make it as efficient and as possible.
What does that practically look like, though? Because it's very easy to sort of say, and we need to have policy that considers the whole value chain, and where are the sort of the specific things that you think could be looked at in terms of engaging wider across the value chain? Is there anything that jumps out to you as being something that they can do fairly easily that would, or not fairly easily, that could help this?
I think the engagement has been good so far. I think that we are developing, the policy has been developed slowly, but it's integrating, a lot of people, but it's not integrating everybody. And I think that's what it needs to do. It needs to get everyone even local authorities have to be involved. And although it'll be a big table, it'll be a lot of discussion, but if we are all aligned, it's going to be much easier and it's going to be much quicker as well.
And what effect do you think, because obviously a lot of the policy being put in place is to encourage investment and engagement in the space. How do you think sort of adjusting that sort of mindset, sort of engaging all the parties will have on project financing for producers, do you think that will sort of help them attract more investment because there's more parties involved, or?
Well, if it's in a structured way, everyone has its place in the market and we don't overrun each other, then I think there'll be a lot more confidence by everybody, by all the investors, in order to put their money forward. If we are, if we're running over each other, trying to get on the same plot of land, trying to do all these different things that we are seeing continuously, and again, we're in a very good position to be able to see the market as a whole because that's the good thing about being independent. Then again, it will move quicker. It will move more. It will end up being cheaper for the consumer.
Has anyone got any questions from the floor? Old-fashioned style. No. I suppose just one more from me then, just to sort of wrap it up. We've spoken a lot about engaging across the value chain, connecting a potentially slightly fragmented dot to dot. Do you think this is this a slow process, long-term process? Do we need to think about this in terms of sort of 5 years' time? Is it a longer-term project or something we can rectify and sort of the industry, if there's sort of good conversations, can do quite quickly?
The earlier we start, the easier it will be. There's no question about that. If we wait for longer, then we'll see that a lot of things that started were in places that they shouldn't have started, and will probably be late. So the quicker the engagement is definitely going to be the better.
Perfect. Gorka, thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.